Hello, welcome to Inside Music Curation. It is Wednesday. We are back. We are the team from Feed Media Group that helps businesses with music solutions, everything from licensing to integration and curation. And today I have with me two members of our curation team. I've got Mike Savage,
Hey,
our curator, and I've got Armando, who's just recently joined the team as curation program manager. Great to have you with us, Armando.
Beer.
And today we're talking about why pop is so popular in fitness. And if you aren't aware, at Feed Media Group, one of our products here is Feed FM, and we power music for the world's leading fitness brands from Tonal to Mir and Nautilus, a lot of the connected fitness devices that you may have come to know and love. Our curators are working behind the scenes with these companies, with these brands to create curated stations for workout experiences. So this is a topic that is particularly near to us. We are working in it every day as we, work with our curators to take both a scientific and a cultural approach to getting the best music for workouts. And let's just talk a little bit. Let's just start here. Okay, pop. What is pop? I'll hand it off to you, Mike.
I mean, it's you can kind of take one of two lanes, right? One is pop music is anything that's popular, right? Anything that is sort of mass appeal, anything. The other lane is okay. No, sonically, pop music has a certain song structure, certain. There's sort of almost like a checklist. It's major chords. It's verse, chorus, verse. It's songs under 3 minutes long that the top 40 radio station in your home city probably plays.
Right, the pop music formula, what good rhythm, it's catchy. It's easy to sing to, easy to remember.
Chorus based, hook based.
So not only pop is a cultural thing, it's what is popular, it's also a genre and generally has this formula, which, maybe even more so than some of the other genres do because it is fitting into this mainstream delivery methods of radio and obviously now finding itself into new streaming platforms.
The other great thing about that is, a lot of these pop songs, they emphasize on love stories, relationships, something that anybody can kind of recognize and empathize with, and which is great. It's great for workouts.
That's true. Yeah. Lyrically relatable, compelling. Generally, like you said, positive, upbeat. What's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's
feel good.
Yeah,
energetic. Yeah.
Well, and I think what's interesting about pop music also is that as a genre, and as a cultural phenomenon, it changes, it evolves, right? Pop music now is not what it was 5 years ago. Can you guys talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. I mean, it was probably 5-6 years ago. I was the host of an internationally syndicated pop-based radio show called the World Chart Show. And the premise behind the show was a countdown show based on, or it was comprised of the most played, the most streamed songs around the world. And a majority of it was English-speaking pop-leaning music. But 5 or 6 years ago, when I first started hosting that show, it was very much more EDM-based, very much more electronic-based, dance music-based. And then maybe 5 or 4 or even 3 years after that, you started to see those EDM artists doing collaborations with, traditional pop artists. So you can kind of, it would be the Chainsmokers featuring singer X, right? And as we got more current, the pop artists started to take that lead, and they then started to incorporate some other genres. So then it became the pop artist, Singer X or Justin Bieber or whoever, incorporating some EDM music, or incorporating some, in some instances, incorporating guitars. So it was interesting to see that shift just in the past 5 years.
And the thing for me is being in fitness for over 10 years and working out consistently for those 10 years. I've adjusted my workouts to that music. Before, when hip hop was, the BPMs were a bit slower, I would do some weightlifting, and I would adjust my workouts to my music. And then soon after, I realized I had to change this up, and then started to move on to things like HIIT training, cycle, and what brought me back to those classes. And I didn't necessarily want to take them. That wasn't the type of workout that I would really enjoy. I wanted to stick with weightlifting, but I knew I had to change. But I came back with that instructor who had that energy in music. That's what really engaged me.
Sure.
Yeah, so so let's talk. So we've talked about what pop music is. It's popular. It changes. It's feel-good music. What are some of the elements that make it so conducive to a fitness workout?
The thing that what's great about pop music, and I was looking at the top 40 airplay, and out of those artists, it's so diverse, with the genres and artists. We have artists in that top 40 that are from Monsta X, BTS, from representing K-pop. We have Anita, who's from Brazil. You have WizKid from Africa. So when you have that variety of genres and artists, it's great to display that in workout programs and workout classes, just because you can reach such a broad audience for new members who are taking these programs. And having music for a specific class is very tricky, and you want to hit every customer. You want every person taking that class feeling that energy, and having that diversity is great. And out of those 40 tracks, I believe the average BPM was about 130 beats per minute, which is great, which is great for fitness.
Yeah, I think you really touched on something that is, pop music is sometimes bigger than the genre, right? It's also popular. It's top 40. And so when we talk about curating for fitness, there's a little wiggle room around what is included in that pop segment.
Absolutely. Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's you have to be careful with the BPMs, right? You don't want to take somebody out of the zone that if you're killing it so far with the music and everything's kind of at the right BPM, keeping their heart rate at a certain rate, and then all of a sudden you throw in something real slow, just because it maybe is a top 40 chart topper, throws the whole game off, and so you got to be careful with it. It's important.
Yeah, it is tricky, and at times, if you're doing a HIIT training, sometimes you'll be on the bike and you want to step up your heart rate, but then, in a transition, you might have some floor exercises that might be okay for that BPM to step down. So it is very tricky.
And pop music, the average BPM changes. I know for a while pop music really slowed down, and so pop is popular. It's what we're doing right now. I actually wanted to share. Again, we're curating stations for hundreds of fitness stations every single month and optimizing as we go. And I just wanted to share the song plays from 2021 so far, and that is that 78% of our clients are streaming some version of a pop channel. So it's not just a little popular; it's really popular. It's really kind of the music of choice for workouts. But I know that that hasn't always been the case. 5 years ago when pop music was slower, it wasn't always necessarily a fit for a fitness routine. So how do you guys feel about where pop music is now, and how are you curating with it?
I mean, from my end anyway, I feel like a lot of that has to do with the fact that a lot of the fitness apps and wellness apps that are out there are more about cardio-based workouts, high intensity training, even running and even stretching, and less about being in an actual gym and like powerlifting free weights, where maybe if there was more of that, there might be more high intensity rock music or higher BPM EDM music, just to kind of be screaming at you in your headphones, right? But yeah, I feel like because more people are working out, because those sort of cardio programs are more popular, the music that coincides with those is pop.
And you have a lot of these collaborations now, from artists from the U.S. and featuring others that are abroad. And for me personally, I like what I'm seeing with, pop Latino and Urbano Latino is it has that energy and that BPM, which is great for dancing and working out. So seeing that, and then also the remix, seeing remixes. There's tons of remixes coming out.
Sure.
So that's very helpful also with these courses, with hit training and such.
Yeah, so you've got, within pop as a fluid genre, you've got diversity in artists, diversity in genres itself, diversity in BPMs. Workouts have changed. Let's talk a little bit about, where we think pop might be going. As far as, if we look back at our data from 2021, a lot of our top stream songs were actually from 2019, 2020. So let's talk a little bit about, when pop music is popular, when it hits that sweet spot for fitness, and how you guys, work to, diversify the content from not just what's current, but what's well known and what's hot.
So yeah, to a certain extent, I try to. I have a radio background from working at major market commercial radio stations, right? And the tenet there is always play the hits, right? Don't be too cool for the room. Don't get too unfamiliar. You don't be that guy who has to throw that weird one. Like play the stuff that's familiar, because especially when you're and this is sort of in our position, it's sort of a client by client situation where we speak to them and find out what the demographics of their customers, and generally speaking, the folks who are 30 and up, they're not as hip to the stuff that came out last week, right? So when they're working out, they want to hear some stuff that they're familiar with, and so that's the stuff that's been out for a couple of years, right? So I always have to, as a curator, catch myself and be like, okay, don't forget about that one that you might be personally so sick of. That's still a favorite of a majority of the customers, of our clients.
Yeah, that's pretty key. What you're saying there is you kind of have to look outside the box and try to understand, who's working out. It's not going to necessarily be what you like. You have to open up and put those hits on there. And hopefully the data will show that these tunes that you're putting in there are likable by the customers.
Yeah, it's lucky. We're lucky in that we have a new.
I've got Dario here. Just as we were talking about the data, I've got Dario, our head curator, here to join the conversation. If you missed it, Armando was just talking about curating, and my curating to our customers, and also looking at the data and what people are listening to. So I'd love to hear some of your thoughts on the data around pop music and how that's driving our curation efforts today.
Yeah, I mean, I think the interesting thing too is the being able to use the data, but also understanding what that means contextualized, in the sense that I think there's this something that the data, and I don't even know if I could guess 100% of the time, right? That there is a lifespan of a song, right? And when it's hot and when it's oversaturated, and people maybe have heard it too long, but then that next lifespan, when it's been enough time that people are okay hearing it again, you know, like that's something that you kind of have to have a feel for, like playing, American Boy now is very, very different than playing it, a year or two after when it came out. You know, there was a period where it was sort of oversaturated and wasn't cool. People had heard it too much, and but then after it had that sort of rest period of 5 or 6 years, then people are like, oh yeah, I forgot about this. Like I think catching that I forgot about this track, even though it was a big hit, is something that is a little like magical and a little bit outside of the data, like having a feel for that I think is also really important, as curating for music in that sense, like finding those, they're not hidden gems because they were hits, but being able to feel and understand when it's been enough time that it can come back.
Right. Yeah, it's true. It's especially with pop music, pop music burns faster than a lot of other genres because, if you're hearing it on the radio, those radio stations run very small, tight playlists where you're going to hear the same song 70 times a week. And you're hearing the pop song in the TV commercial, and you're hearing it in the soundtrack of the movie, and you're hearing it all over the place. So those songs burn quick. But yeah, Dario, when you get that, it's a skill to know when we can bring that hit back. When it's rested enough. I mean, we put it back in the fridge. It's cooled down. We're good.
Yeah, no, very true. And that's a balance between demographic, right? People, wanting to hear the hot hits and then the sort of like classic hits,
Sure.
and blending them also in a way that is effective. I think that is also something that you can use data to tell you which songs will work in that category, but you still have to have an understanding of the songs and genres so that they can meld in a way that feels natural.
It goes back to that, to looking at the demographics, I think, to a certain extent of our clients' customers, because you don't want to alienate the older folks, people who aren't as attuned to what just came out. So you don't want to alienate them by playing a whole bunch of all unfamiliar stuff. But then you also don't want to play stuff that the younger demographic is just sick of because they've been hearing it nonstop everywhere else, right?
It's there's definitely an art, the art of curation. It's amazing what you guys are doing and how you keep your finger on the pulse of what's going on in culture today, as well as working with the data. If you could leave, folks with one tip about, curating a pop station or playlist for fitness, what would your main takeaway be?
I think for me, when I've curated music, one important thing is trying to, distinguish that demographic. That's important. But then also, get outside of the box of music, different genres. I would put music that I wouldn't listen to, just because I knew I could capture, the energy for customers. So just kind of look outside the box and don't be afraid to experiment with new genres.
Yeah, I mean, I think that like not being afraid in the same way of not being afraid of pop, right? I think there's a lot of people that are scared of, playing or listening to something that is popular. There is always a shade of things are popular because they're being pushed, but they're being pushed because they're good. There is quality there. And so I think a lot of people are sometimes afraid of popular music, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I think there's a lot of music that doesn't get as much long-term love as it should.
Sure. I personally would say that, think about who you're curating this music for and understand that a majority of them are passive music listeners, passive music fans. They're using this music to get through, potentially a very tough workout. So, just keep that in mind with whatever you're throwing in there, right?
Awesome. All right, we're running out of time. I've got one final question. Again, pop as a genre, it's fluid, it changes. What do you see in the larger music scene happening today? What are going to be the effects on pop in the next couple of years?
I think because as big of a world as it is, it's also a very small world now. Everyone's connected. So I feel like, as we move forward, there's going to be a lot more collaboration. There's going to be a lot more of that sort of cross-genre melding. And that's why I'm like, bullish on pop music, because I can't wait to hear what's going to come of that,
Yeah,
what I mentioned. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think it's very similar to that period in the 80s, where if you look back on it, you're like, wait, that was a hit? Like that weird thing, like we're sort of getting into that space where, yeah, there is all that cross, genre melding, and people are allowed to take risks, and you get something like, Old Town Road or other things like that, in the same way that, like, Come On Eileen's a weird song. Like it's weird for, if you think about the time period and the other music that was around, but it was that period where people were melding very desperate genres together in new and interesting ways. And sometimes that was a one-off, and that even like Come On Eileen's a one-off for Dexy Midnight Runners, but also just, in and of itself also then birthed new genres and other things. And I feel like that's where we're entering, where there's going to be flux period where some things will be one-off, some things won't really. Like, I don't think hyperpop has like longevity. It's kind of like, chill wave or other things that like has this moment and then dies down. But things that are adjacent to that, or that influences, may sort of branch out and become that, in the same way that happened in the 80s.
All right. Well, you heard it here first. Again, this is the Curation team at Feed Media Group. We're a B2B music platform helping fitness companies and other digital experience and apps power music to create better experiences and more engaging experiences for their users. We're talking today about pop is popular in fitness. That's where we spend a lot of our time working. If you want to hear more or learn more, check out feedmediagroup.com. We've got our year in review stats coming out soon. So follow along. We'd love to see you back here. We're here every other week talking about all the hot topics in music curation. Thank you, Mike, Dario, Armando, for sharing your expertise with the world. And thanks, everyone, for tuning in.
Thanks, guys.